Good afternoon. Welcome to the Nebraska Court Improvement Project webinar. I am Deb Van Dyke Reese, Director of the Nebraska Court Improvement Project. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, I want to provide an overview of CIP. Nebraska Court Improvement Project is part of a nationwide network of court improvement programs situated under the highest court of each state. Nebraska CIP has 5 primary activities: education, collaboration, publications, data, and supporting the judge-led multidisciplinary through the eyes of the child teams. All of these activities are focused on improving the juvenile court system for children, youth, and families who are impacted by this system. Now to some housekeeping items for today's webinar, which is being recorded and can be found for future reference on the CIP YouTube channel. We have received continuing legal education credit, and we'll share the activity number with you at the end of the presentation. And we will leave time at the end for questions, but you can post questions in the Q&A at any time. So something that's very near and dear to my heart is adoption. And adoption and guardianship are 2 options for permanency for children and youth in Nebraska's juvenile courts. It is a celebrated occasion, resulting in many of us no longer working with the family or the child. But adoption is not a destination, but the beginning of a journey together as a family. And today's webinar will highlight the work of Families Forever, a program of Nebraska Children's Home Society. Families Forever provides post-adoption and guardianship services to families with a Nebraska adoption or guardianship. The curriculum of services enhances the parent-child relationship while providing stability in the home. Today's presenters will cover Families Forever, 6 core services, and how families can utilize this service. Today we have 3 presenters who include Shauna Erickson, a certified social worker, and she is a family permanency specialist with Families Forever in Lincoln. Shauna has past experience in Nevada as a family support worker and assessment worker with the Division of Child and Family Services. And Shauna has been with Families Forever with that program since March 2022. Rebecca Ryder is a Families Forever supervisor, supervising staff in Lincoln and Western Nebraska. Rebecca has past experience as a youth advocate with AmeriCorps, a family permanency specialist with Nebraska Families Collaborative, and family permanency specialist with Right Turn and Families Forever. Rebecca has been with NCHS since August 2017. And Teresa Frazier is the program coordinator for Families Forever. She has experience as a RISE specialist, which is Rural Improvement for Schooling and Employment with AmeriCorps, Juvenile Diversion Officer, Juvenile Truancy Probation Officer, Specialized Juvenile Probation Officer, Family Permanency Specialist with Right Turn, and as a Right Turn Supervisor. Teresa has been with NCHS since October 2017. So I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, Rebecca, and Shauna for today's content. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb, for that introduction. So I appreciate everyone joining us on the webinar today to learn a little bit more about the Families Forever program and a little bit about Nebraska Children's Home Society. We appreciate the introduction for myself and my colleagues who are here with me today. And so kind of without further ado, we'll dive right in and get started with our presentation today. So the Families Forever program is a program within Nebraska Children's Home Society, and it is a part of our pregnancy, parenting, and adoption department. And before we dive too deep into the Families Forever program itself, we just wanted to share a little bit of information about NCHS kind of as a whole and who we are and kind of where that started. Nebraska Children's Home Society, or NCHS, is a private nonprofit agency. We have 7 locations across the state. We have been putting children first since we were founded in 1893. The founding of NCHS was part of a national movement that resulted in the founding of children's home societies in 36 states between 1883 and 1916. And we continually evaluate and adjust services to address children's needs. And since we were founded, our principal beliefs have stayed the same, and that is that every child deserves access to a bright future and a loving home. Now, 130 years later after our founding, we remain committed to providing support for families, children, kinship caregivers, grandparents, adopted families, and foster parents through access to community resources, support groups, and just ongoing educational opportunities. NCHS is committed to helping families across the board. We know that they are formed through various ways, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And so we're committed to helping those families regardless of how they come into being. And over our extensive history, we've helped caregivers to grow in their roles and have supported countless children in safe and loving homes. NCHS is an agency. We are committed to creating the best home environment possible. And we do that by leading with our mission, vision, and core values. Our current aspirations include enabling successful transitions for every foster youth to adulthood, ensuring bright futures for Nebraska's children, expanding access to home visitation, and leading innovation to strengthen Nebraska's families. So, NCHS, we offer a number of programs across the state. And so, statewide, the services that we offer include adoption and post-adoption services, family assessments, family finding, the Families Forever program, kinship support and navigation, options education, and pregnancy and parenting services, with Omaha offering a few additional services between their 2 offices that include the early childhood education at the Early Childhood Center, foster care support, the self-sufficiency program, and the young parent support program. So now that we've kind of covered a brief overview of NCHS as a whole, we'll kind of dive into the Families Forever program itself with a little bit of information about how the Families Forever program was formed and came into being. So in 2008, the Safe Haven Law was enacted in Nebraska, and when that was first put into place, there was no upper age limit in place. So parents were able to drop off children of any age at safe haven sites to be cared for by the system without fear of prosecution. And so Nebraska found itself kind of inundated with a number of children, and within those children that were dropped off at the safe haven sites, 75% of the children were from adoptive or guardianship homes. This created a bit of a crisis in the state of Nebraska and recognition that these types of families needed additional help and support. As a result of that, the post-adoption contract was created as a result of this, just due to the amount of children being left at the safe haven sites that were older and had come and were from former adoptive and guardianship homes. And so that post-adoption contract was created through the Nebraska Revised Statute 71-824. So after that post-adoption contract was created, a collaboration between NCHS and Lutheran Family Services called Right Turn received that contract for the state and provided those post-adoption services across the state for 11 years. Right Turn was dissolved September 30th, 2021, and NCHS was awarded the post-adoption contract moving forward from that point. And this resulted in the Families Forever program being formed, and we began providing those post-adoption services on October 1st, 2021. So we've covered a little bit about the Family Forever history, and now we'll kind of dive into who makes up the Families Forever team in our program. So we currently have offices across the state. We are a statewide program. We have offices in Scottsbluff, Norfolk, North Platte, Grand Island, Lincoln, and Omaha. This allows us to be able to meet the needs of families statewide. Our staff and kind of who makes up the Families Forever team includes our pregnancy, parenting, and adoption director, our program coordinator, community engagement coordinator, education and training coordinator, and then we have 2 Families Forever supervisors, and then a number of family permanency specialists kind of spread out across the state. So with all of our staff, all of our staff have at minimum a bachelor's degree. That's the minimum requirement to be on staff with Families Forever, with a number of staff on our team that also have their master's degrees as well. All of our staff do have some experience in the child welfare realm. And then when new staff members are hired, they do have to go through a number of trainings before they can go out on their own. And so some of those things when they're hired include 20 hours of shadowing, which is where the new worker goes out into the field and observes those workers who have already been with Families Forever for a little bit, have already gone through all of the training, so they can go out and observe their interactions with the families that we work with. They can observe those interactions directly. We also have to go through 20 hours of agency or other adoptive related trainings. And that can include reading recommended books or attending webinar and trainings on adoption issues. We also complete 20 hours of NTI training, 6 hours of 7 core issues training, motivational interviewing 1 and 2, training on mobility mentoring, family checkup, and everyday parenting. On top of all of that, all of our staff also participates in a monthly book club where we read books that are related to adoption and have conversations and discussions around what we read in those books. We are currently reading How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish. All of our staff also attend the trainings provided by Families Forever, so that we're all able to, be able to better understand the topics and have more thorough understanding, so that way we can discuss that and encourage the families that we work with to attend those trainings. Where staff are also able to attend any trainings that they find on their own throughout the year. So we'll give a brief overview of kind of what the qualifications are to be involved with Families Forever, and what the services are that we offer the families that we work with. Okay. So our mission with Families Forever is to provide a whole continuum of services in order to help enhance the parent-child relationship while helping also provide a little bit more stability in the home if that's needed. In the past, post-adoption services did rely heavily on case management, whereas with Families Forever, we are committed on providing a more holistic approach to enhancing those relationships. In order to achieve this, we provide 6 core services to the families who are involved with Families Forever. Those services include one-on-one support and education, connections to mental health services, mentoring, trainings, support groups, and respite options. So, in order to access services through Families Forever, the families either need to have finalized their adoption or guardianship in Nebraska. Even if they live in another state, they can still access our services if it was finalized in Nebraska. Or if it wasn't finalized in Nebraska, then if they live in Nebraska and reside in Nebraska and have their family still formed through adoption or guardianship, they still have access to our services. We work with families who were formed through adoption or guardianship up until the child reaches the age of 21. And we are also a 6-month voluntary program. So anybody who's formed through adoption or guardianship and with a child under the age of 21, they can reach out to us to receive services. And one of the great things about our program is that families can utilize our services as many times as they want until their child turns 21. So we have had many families that have utilized and reached out to Families Forever multiple times. So if services end with us and something comes up at a future point and they feel that they need maybe some additional support or services, they can reach out as many times as they want to restart services with the Families Forever program. There is no limit to that. So with our one-on-one services, that is where our family permanency specialists are working with the family in the home one-on-one to provide services to them. We are able to meet with families both in person and via Zoom. Since our services are only 6 months long, we do meet with families based off of a tiered system. For months 1 and 2, we meet with the families weekly, months 3 and 4 bi-weekly, and months 5 and 6 monthly. Now, these are just the minimum meeting requirements for our families. So we can meet with families more often if that's needed. If they have a need to meet more often with their family permanency specialist, that is always a possibility. And can be arranged. Those are just our minimum meeting requirements that we have in place. The hope, though, is that the further along the families get in services with us, the less intervention they will need. And if a family is getting close to the end of the 6 months of services with us and feel like they still could utilize our support and our services, we are able to request an extension to be able to continue to meet with them. And so if we get that, with getting that extension, it allows for us to continue to meet with the family based off of our tiered system for another 6 months. With our family permanency specialists, when we're meeting with the families, we're also providing education to the family. We do this through discussions and curriculum. Some of the education and curriculum provided to the families that we work with include mobility mentoring, family checkup, everyday parenting, and 7 core issues of adoption. A couple of other things that we also do with the families that we work with is help complete subsidy paperwork, attend IEP, MDT, and school meetings, attend team meetings, provide referrals for services, as well as assist with life books. Our family permanency staff also do follow-up calls with families 30 days, 6 months, and 1 year after discharge, just to kind of check in and see how things are going with them. And then as needed, we are able to suggest that, if a need has come up, that the family can re-engage in services with us. So like I mentioned, mobility mentoring is one thing that we use with our families. So innovation is one of NCHS's core values. And part of an example of that innovation is NCHS implementing the mobility mentoring into our programs. Mobility mentoring is a part of our Families Forever program, and we do utilize it with our families. It's also part of 5 other programs within our organization. NCHS recognizes how economic hardship can impact a family in many ways. Using the bridge to self-sufficiency as a self-assessment tool leads to identifying where someone is at within the 5 critical pillars that are a part of this program. So specialists can help participants, can help the families recognize how all pillars connect and impact each other. This tool is then used for a goal setting conversation. So with the mobility mentoring, in this approach is based on groundbreaking brain science. It provides a more holistic approach, helps transform people's lives and support the participant being the expert of their own lives, and provides NCHS with the tools to incorporate the concepts into the existing programs. The family checkup and everyday parenting programs that we use with our families are strengths-based curriculums from the University of Oregon, and they are approved by the California Clearinghouse. Family checkup is the core curriculum of the Families Forever program. The family checkup is usually a yearly or twice yearly intervention that involves a caregiver filling out questionnaires that then lead into a conversation about how things are going with the family, and how things are going like in the household with them. Rather than just looking at the child, the family checkup examines the social emotional health of the child and the adult, as well as contextual factors that may be impacting the family, and then narrows in on parenting practices. The family checkup program is a family-centered and strengths-based intervention, meaning that the caregiver and or parent is viewed as the expert, and we seek out their strengths as the place to empower and motivate families to work towards making some changes. The assessment tools we use are backed by research, and motivational interviewing is the spirit in which we engage the families that we work with. Each family checkup is uniquely tailored to identify the strengths and needs of each family that we work with. The way we change challenging child behaviors is by empowering the parent and improving parenting strategies working from the bottom up. Research has shown that when parents feel more effective, there's a direct positive benefit for their kids. We also use the Everyday Parenting Program as a tool to support parents' development of effective parenting skills and family management practices. The impact we see from using everyday parenting is that families have more positive family interactions. We see a decrease in those coercive power struggles, and over time, research shows that the children's behavior improves at home and at school, and both parent and child well-being increase. The Everyday Parenting Program is divided into 3 broad domains: positive behavior support, effective limit setting, and family relationship building. Whereas some families might choose to get support in multiple parenting domains, others may want support in only one. And then I will now pass it off to Rebecca for the 7 core issues in adoption and permanency.
I'm going to talk about the 7 core issues in adoption and permanency. It is a conceptual framework that outlines the 7 lifelong issues experienced by Constellation members, person who is adopted, birth, first parent, and adoptive parents. These issues do not indicate the individual or the institution of adoption or permanency as pathological. These are additional and expected issues that evolve logically out of the nature of adoption and permanency. The issues create dynamics in people's and families' lives that must be acknowledged and addressed in order for healthy relationships to be created. It is important that anyone working with children and families touched by adoption or permanency know and understand these issues and how they impact the individual and family. If you would like more information on this topic, you can reach out to a family permanency specialist or attend our training on the 7 core issues of adoption and permanency. We provide mental health connections to families that work with us. The family permanency specialist working with the family will provide referrals for various mental health services, including evaluations, medication management, and therapy. We often discuss this with the families, the importance of using a TAC-trained therapist. The TAC-trained therapist is competent in trauma adoption, and the therapists have completed an accredited 12-session, 72-hour competency-based training program to provide pre- and post-adoption therapy services to families. Our mentoring service, Families to Families, is a program that is voluntary to families. Families must be engaged in our one-on-one services to receive these services. In this service, families are paired up with other post-adoptive families and their mentors, and they share similarities to them. They have, at minimum, a weekly contact either through phone, text, email, or in person. Mentors are there to provide additional support to the family. The mentoring program lasts the duration of the one-on-one services. I will now share a mentoring success story. A family was referred by their family permanency specialist to Families to Families. At this time of the referral, the adoptive parents were struggling with their 2 children's behaviors, especially towards one another. Besides this, the family was struggling with issues related to mental health. The mentor began right away working with the mother, supporting her by recommending resources that helped them during their adoption journey and having conversations about managing expectations that she or other people may have put on the family, including how she parents and how her children behave. The mentor opened herself up enough that the mentee felt comforted quickly, so much that she began reaching out during more intense situations, talking through them and turning around what could have possibly been a much worse situation. They discussed how behavioral issues can be an expression of need and a need for control. The mentor helped the mother see this as not being intentional and instead to focus more on problem solving and helping her children learn from the situation. The mentor helped the mother to connect first instead of correcting. Mother had a goal of wanting to focus on more positive than negative. The mentor would encourage her by reminding her of the progress they have made and asking her to name some positive things when all she could think or talk about was negative. The family had expressed that overall they really benefited from having this fellow adoptive mother as a mentor, and the mother is thankful for the frequent contact and support she was provided with. As mentioned previously, she felt comfortable reaching out for tips and advice dealing with challenges the family was facing. The mother reported to her mentor that she felt like they made a breakthrough with one of the children, and the mother and mentor were both hopeful that the support, tools, and guidance will help the family continue to move forward. We offer training and educational workshops, and the training and educational workshops are offered by Families Forever and are designed to help educate and are geared towards a broad number of participants. Post-adoptive parents, kinship care providers, guardianship, foster care providers, and professionals who provide support to these families. Notably, for post-adoptive parents, kinship care providers, foster care providers, and DHHS workers, there is no cost to attend the workshops. For those that are licensed, it is possible that these workshops will meet continuing education requirements. In an effort to make the training accessible statewide, workshops are being scheduled in our 6 locations for in-person attendance. In addition, virtual workshops presented using Zoom are scheduled for each month. Finally, some of the workshops are presented in a hybrid format, combining in-person and virtual attendance. We are committed to providing these services in a way that matches an individual's learning styles, needs, and schedules. This includes workshops being held outside of typical working hours on evenings and Saturdays. Our training content contains our goals to be informational and accessible to adoption, guardianship, families, and professionals. Trainings are presented in a way that allows parents and professionals to make connections to their personal experience and to make connections to their children's experiences, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Our trainings do not stigmatize children in adoption or foster kinship care. Our training seeks to normalize and remove stigma related to different care situations, to dispel adoption misinformation, misunderstanding, and insensitivity, to support children and families, including first birth family members. Our training helps to provide parents, care providers, and professionals with
Rebecca, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Our trainings help to provide parents, care providers, and professionals with actionable skills and ideas to be put into practice. It also introduces and emphasizes that adoption is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing topic across age and development for all the adoptive constellation, child, adoption, adoptive, kinship, foster parents, birth, and first parents, and any other constellation members that are in the child's life. The NCHS events calendar is where you can find current and future workshops listed. That can be found at nchs.org/events. We encourage people to subscribe to the calendar so you're made aware of upcoming and new additions to our training and education workshop. Feel free to take a picture or a screenshot so you can have the website for your future reference. Families Forever also offers support groups across the state for all current and past Family Forever participants. Support groups are free of cost, and we provide dinner and child care. There is space for families to connect with one another and discuss topics relating to adoption and guardianship. We currently have 3 in-person support groups. We have one in Omaha, the second Thursday of the month, one in Lincoln on the third Thursday of the month, and one in Grand Island on the second Tuesday of the month. We also hold a virtual group, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month. We encourage support groups to help with parent and child relationships and feeling supported. Support groups help to empower parents to feel connected and heard. It also helps being around other adoption and guardianship parents who understand that what they're going through and being able to offer each other advice and support. Support groups also help the children to feel connected to other adoption and guardianship children. Children also feel they are alone when they're adopted, but when you get them around each other, they are in the same situation. It helps them build relationships, connections, and self-esteem. All of our support groups are facilitated by staff, but they are participant-led with the discussion and communication. Families Forever does try and assist to the best of our ability with finding respite or adequate respite for families. We do understand that respite is a very hard thing to find in the state of Nebraska, as there is really no access to it after a child exits foster care. We will assist with respite by helping families find options that are through informal supports. And we work with families to help them identify those supports and approach potential supports as a potential option. We also refer families to activities for the child that are positive and can be used to provide a break from the child and help in that way. We hold events for the families twice a year, one typically in the spring and one typically in the fall. Some of the events we have planned included a winter wonderland where we had a catered brunch. We did winter themed crafts, including ornament decorating, and enjoyed special guests such as wildlife encounters as they introduced us to some live animals. We have hosted family picnics in the park where we had indoor crafts and outdoor games. We've provided a picnic style dinner. We hosted a private movie showing of the Super Mario Brothers movie at the Alamo. And we also included drinks and snacks. This fall, we hosted some time at the Skinny Bones Pumpkin Patch and held scavenger hunts, s'mores making, and explored all of the attractions that the pumpkin patch had to offer. We also host a biennial conference, Full Circle, and we are very excited to be currently organizing our 2024 conference. This is aimed to deepen the understanding of how adoption and guardianship impacts the lives of the children. And in addition, this is an opportunity to connect families and professionals to encourage learning and growth in support of all, and ultimately support the children. This will be the second conference presented by Families Forever, or the program of NCHS. Our first conference was held on October 27th, 2022 at the Thompson Alumni Center in Omaha. Speakers and topics at the conference included Dr. Shatra Werda-Leiker presented Reframing the 7 Core Issues in Adoption and Transracial Identity. Sarah Sanson presenting Moving Towards Earned Secure Attachment, Regulation, and Engagement. Barb Clark presented Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders. Brenna Poindexter presented Healing Power of Relationships. Jody Angel Trejo presented Trauma and Neurological Development and Healing Trauma. Nathan Ross was our keynote speaker, and he presented Adoption Through the Eyes of an Adoptee. Brianna Woodside presented 7 Core Issues of Adoption, and Michelle Westingard presented Meeting Children's Sensory Needs. And this is another way we provide access to resources and support needed to build deeper, more meaningful relationships in families. Our next conference is scheduled for the fall of next year. Please look for opportunities to identify important topics and provide input on potential presenters from our communities and beyond. We encourage attendance by all who are involved in adoption, kinship, foster guardianship. Keep an eye out for more information on our 2024 conference. If you would be interested in providing input on topics for our conference, please reach out to a Families Forever staff member. Support is a huge thing for families that are touched by adoption, and Families Forever believes that support and education that are for families that are touched by adoption and permanency is crucial to helping families overcome challenges that can feel isolating. We help by working with families to set attainable goals through mobility mentoring, family checkup, everyday parenting curriculum, training about adoption related topics, and our families to families mentoring, as well as our support groups. Many families struggle more than they wish to admit, and Families Forever understands this. And with our support, our goal is for family success. How to access services from Families Forever. Get in contact with us. There are several different avenues in which a family can access our services. The same avenues are available for professionals if they have questions or have a family that might be interested in services and want us to reach out to them. Families or professionals can contact our 24/7 access line. We do have a third party who fields the calls, and they can also assist families if they're in a crisis. They can put in inquiries. The family or professional can put in inquiries either through our NCHS website or Facebook page. Families or providers can email us directly, or they can reach out to a Families Forever staff member. Our response time back to families and professionals is within 24 hours or the following business day at the latest. Now, I'd like to share a success story of a family that worked for us for the entire time of 6 months. The family permanency specialist in Grand Island worked with a family, and this family engaged in services due to the 5-year-old son's behavior. The son was in pre-K and struggling. When the family reached out, the son had been sent home over 14 times in a 3-week period from school for aggressive behaviors that could not be redirected. He could not sit still or stay on task for more than 2 minutes at a time, was constantly being put in timeouts for yelling at staff or pushing, punching, or kicking classmates. The family wasn't seeing many behaviors at home, but the school was constantly calling the parents with complaints. The family permanency specialist worked with the family over the course of the 6 months to assist them in getting their son set up with therapy and medication management. The family's son was diagnosed with severe ADHD and a speech impediment. The family's main goals were to get their son the help he needed, work with the school to implement a proactive IEP, and get proper diagnosis and treatment for their son. The family and the specialist focused on utilizing the family checkup model and everyday parenting to target some aggressive behavior, anger issues, and ADHD with her son. The family participated.
Rebecca, you're on mute again.
Sorry about that. The family participated and still participates in support groups and training opportunities. The family and the specialist met with the school before the beginning of the school year and ended up putting a plan in place to help the son build back time in pre-K and lay out the goals and plan for when he started kindergarten in 2023. The FPS recently met with the family, who advised that her son had been in kindergarten since August 17th and hasn't had to be sent home at all. He is taking medication for his ADHD and attending therapy. His behaviors at school have all but completely changed, and the family continues to see no aggression or anger at home. The teacher at their son's school have complimented the family and their son on the progress, and they continue to celebrate on how well their son is doing in speech and occupational therapy, as well as the classroom. Because the son's behaviors have improved so much, he even has a stronger bond with his adopted dad and his siblings. The son is able to stay on task at home and school, and the family states that they are able to enjoy more activities and outings together without worrying about having to leave early because the son is too angry, aggressive, or hyper. You might be asking what you can do to get families or people more involved. And there are several different things you can do as professionals to help us out. You can invite us to meetings or lunch and learns for us to share information on the program as a whole, or to provide adoption related training. You can provide families with our one-page flyer and encourage them to reach out to us. You can also reach out to us directly if you have questions or a situation you'd like to discuss, or if you just want to reach out to a family to see if they want our support. If you have any questions or want us to come speak at any meetings, please reach out to familiesforever@nchs.org. Here's a list of our staff contact information. This, along with our Full Circle Conference, our Families Forever one-page flyer, and our training calendar, can also be found on the events page for this webinar, and also has been posted in the chat. And then this is a listing of our staff by location throughout the state of Nebraska. And now, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
So there were a number of questions in the Q&A, and so I might just kind of walk through some of those questions. So the first one was really talking about respite, and if if respite is paid, or if there is a reimbursement by Families Forever for paying for respite.
So with respite, we are really working hard with the families to identify those informal supports. So that's mostly what our main focus is. Like, let's identify informal supports, whether that's, someone that they met through a support group, or families to families mentor, or someone at your child's school. That is where we're starting at, because those respite resources are very, very hard to find. And most of the time, our families aren't able to utilize them for one reason or another. So it's really focusing on who are their informal supports. Let's identify them. Let's reach out to them.
Great, thank you. There was another question about how often are you being invited to attend subsidy signings in the central and western service areas of DHHS?
So we're not currently attending subsidy signings unless a DHHS worker reaches out to us specifically. What we are doing is each month we receive a list of all the adoptions or the guardianships that have happened across the state, and all of our family permanency specialists are reaching out to those families to let them know of our services. So that's what we call our permanency calls, and that is how we are making contact with those families rather than going to the subsidy signings. Just because we've received some feedback that maybe at those subsidy signings, there's a lot going on for those families, and sometimes they kind of forget about our information. So we've been doing it after finalization of an adoption or guardianship has happened.
Great, thank you. And it looks like Rebecca might be answering the next question, so I'll jump to the following one. Are the support groups the same? Let's see here. So are the support groups all the same aside from location and format, or are they different or specific for certain subpopulations?
So they're the same. They're open to adoption and guardianship families. Like, we don't split them up based on, if they're kinship, like a kinship adoption, or if they're a guardianship or just adoption. It's just all the groups combined. And for each group, we have kind of a topic of the month, kind of just to start the conversation, but we do kind of let the families lead some of that discussion as well. So.
Okay. And are all of the resources that you mentioned available to families that have adopted undocumented children?
My understanding that it would be available for them as well.
Okay. There was a question about if a CASA can refer a guardianship family to Families Forever.
Yeah, so that can either give the families our information and have the family reach out to us, or the CASA can reach out to us directly and provide us the family's information, and we can reach out to the family, whichever is the easiest.
And is there a typical kind of situation or reason that a family starts to work with Families Forever?
Usually it's because maybe they're seeing behaviors in the home, but then again, it just kind of goes back to enhancing those parent-child relationships and providing that stability in the home. But I would say often most of the calls are because there's some kind of, miscommunication happening between the child and the parent, or maybe they're not connecting with one another and it's being seen as behaviors.
Let's see here. And there was a question about identifying a possible guardian for a teen. That's not something that Families Forever focuses on. It's after that guardianship has been established.
Correct. Yeah, our main focus is post-adoption or guardianship. We can potentially do some pre-adoption, pre-guardianship stuff, but it's very situational. So, but we wouldn't be helping identify necessarily a guardian.
Okay. And so if there is a family that I'm guessing has a Nebraska established adoption or guardianship, but they are out of state, are they still able to access resources and get help from Families Forever?
Yes, they are. Yep. We meet with them via Zoom, but we are able to help find those resources in the community that they reside. But yes, we do work with them.
Okay. And would Families Forever representatives work with the school or the therapist if they're involved with a family?
Yeah, so we like to keep open communication. And so we understand it's a team effort sometimes. And so we like to be a part of those team meetings and have open conversations with all members involved with working with family.
Okay. And then there was a question, what if there is tribal involvement from South Dakota, but the children are in Nebraska? Do they qualify for services?
Sorry, can you read that question one more time? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. So there's tribal involvement from South Dakota, but the children are in Nebraska. Would they qualify for services?
Yeah, so if there's even with the tribal involvement, if there's an adoption or guardianship and they're residing in Nebraska, yes. If not it could be situational too. I would have to probably have a little bit more information on that to be able to probably give a better answer.
Okay. And if a teen wants to receive some of the program services, but the parents don't, is it possible for the teen to work with Families Forever if their adoptive or guardianship parents are not open to that?
Yeah, so I think in those situations, we would, try to engage the family or the parents as much as possible and have conversations with them about kind of our services, what that could look like, because maybe their perception of what it's going to look like is different than what we have proposed. Or maybe there's a way to kind of compromise so that we can work with them, but we would still have conversations with the parents. We would want them to be included because that's gonna, make the most success is having everyone involved.
So if there is a family that is working with Families Forever and there are some financial needs of that family, is there financial assistance available through Nebraska Children's Home?
So we utilize mobility mentoring, which is a self-sufficiency tool. So we do try to help them build some of that self-sufficiency through that program. It would depend on what it was if we would have funds, but we don't normally have a specific amount set aside for families, but we can always help them maybe find other resources to help finance things. But then like I said, we can also work with them on building that self-sufficiency too. So it would just kind of depend on what it is, because there might be things we can help out with and other things we could help find those resources or build that self-sufficiency around.
Great. And it looks like we have one more question. So can Families Forever work with families who are already involved with the probation system?
Yes, we can. Yep. Again, it goes back to kind of being like that team effort. We would definitely want to collaborate and work together with working with that family.
Okay. So it looks like our questions are slowing down, but we've got some great resources in terms of contact information for all of our presenters, additional training opportunities that can be found on in that resources document. We will be posting the activity number. I think we're working on getting that pulled up for the CLE, but it's my extreme pleasure to thank you all for presenting this information about Families Forever with Nebraska Children's Home Society. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded, will be available on the Nebraska CIP YouTube channel. And I want to thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Is there anything else you need from us, Deb? Okay. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.